Hey, moneymakers, welcome to another episode of Taking Stock Live. I'm your host, Kalila Enriquez Reynolds, and we're bringing you all the latest business news and telling you how it will affect you and your money. As usual, we have a jam-packed show for you this evening. As you would have heard or maybe seen in the thumbnail or heard from our promos, Jamaica has a new technology park. Well, new-ish, because it opened a year ago. It officially opened today. We have the MJS Technology Park in Spanish Town, transforming the economy of that area and adding a whole bunch of jobs. We're going to be taking a look and talking all about it in tonight's show. And then we're telling you about a brand new campaign being launched by Mayberry Investments. They've launched their civil servant investment campaign, and we're going to be learning a lot more about that. Then later in the show, it's all about the Analysts Dolphin Cove has their results out, and we're going to be discussing that. And we also want to know what stocks should we be watching for the summer. So of course, leave a comment in the chat. Let us know what part of Jamaica or what part of the world you are joining us from. And of course, hit that like button, subscribe to this channel, and tell a friend that Taking Stock is on now and we are live. And we want everybody in Jamaica, in the Caribbean, in the world to be tuning in and finding out what is hot in business. Speaking of which, up next, we've got to look at what's coming up in tonight's show, followed by what's hot in business. Now, come on, let's get this money. On this episode of Taking Stock, the largest tech park in Jamaica is now officially open in Spanish Town. MJS Industrial and Technology Park is helping to revamp the community as Jamaica's first sustainable complex. What does that mean and what's next? Chairman Michael Subratie joins us. And Mayberry Investments just launched its civil servant investment campaign. We'll learn more. Then the analysts weigh in on the latest market developments. Summer is heating up. What stocks should we keep an eye on for the party season? And what's the latest with Dolphin Cove? We'll discuss.
But first, here's what's hot, brought to you by JMMB Group, your best interest at heart.
Tropical Battery has announced a further extension of its secondary offer. The offer was originally scheduled to close on June 6, but was extended to June 20. The company now says the offer will close on or before July 4. According to Tropical, institutional and other investors have expressed continued interest in participating in the offer and requested more time to finalize their investments. Tropical is trying to raise almost 2 billion Jamaican dollars to pay down some of its debts and improve profitability. NCB Financial Group is trying to raise up to $3 billion in a new bond offer. The unsecured corporate bond is being offered in 2 Jamaican dollar tranches. Tranche A matures in 2 years and has a 9.5% interest rate. Tranche B matures in 3 years and has an interest rate of 9.75%. The minimum subscription is $500,000, followed by increments of $50,000. The offer is scheduled to close on July 4. Trinidadian conglomerate Agostini has announced plans to acquire Prestige Holdings through a share swap offer. The Agostini Group operates across Trinidad's pharmaceutical, consumer product, energy, and industrial sectors, while Prestige is Trinidad and Tobago's largest restaurant management company. It has 136 restaurants across Trinidad and Tobago and the Caribbean, with brands like KFC, Pizza Hut, and Starbucks. According to Agostini's, under the arrangement, Prestige shareholders will receive 1 Agostini share for every 4.8 Prestige shares held. The offer, which is still subject to approval, will expand Agostini's portfolio into the Caribbean's retail food and beverage sector. Internet users are being advised to change their passwords following what tech experts are calling the largest data breach ever. Online tech publication Cyber News says some 16 billion passwords have been leaked. Researchers said even though the information was only briefly exposed, it affected almost all major platforms, including logins from Apple, Google, Facebook, and others. The stolen data reportedly came from several info stealers, which are malicious software created to breach computer systems and steal sensitive information. Graduation season is so exciting, but how can you help to prepare the graduates in your life for the road ahead? The gift of financial education keeps on giving forever. Get the Money Mission Workbook to help your graduates stay in control of their finances as they move along on their journey. It will help them navigate those big questions like debt, financial planning, and even increasing their income through investing. Go to the link in my bio to get it. Let's get this workbook. Welcome back. Let's see who we have in our comments and where you guys are joining us from this evening. We got Chairman saying greetings to the money makers. Garfield is in Spanish Town. Garfield, have you checked out MJS Industrial and Tech Park? Making a huge difference over there in Spanish Town. I was there today. We have Kish sending greetings. We have Richard in cool St. James. St. James is cool today. Glad to hear it. Probably it's been raining because we've been getting quite a bit of rain recently. Colin is in Mandeville. So no, that's where I expect to hear cool Mandeville. Mikhail is in St. James as well. We've got Branjamin checking in from Arizona, previously Old Harbor. Visiting, Mikhail, or you migrated? What's up? Raquel saying good night to the money makers and reminding you to like and come in. You know, Raquel is our like police. We've got Dwight in the house. Ian is joining us from Toronto. Ingrid is checking in from Bull Bay, St. Andrew. The diplomat is in Atlanta and saying welcome back because you were missing last week to Lady Raquel. We've got Sheldon in Kingston. Tavares saying bless up Jermaine all the way in China. Christine in Kingston 19. And Christopher saying good night to the money team. Let's get this moolah. Love it. So here's a look at the brand new 1-year-old MJS Industrial and Technology Park.
What if the future of Jamaican commerce wasn't in Kingston? What if it was here, located better, built smarter, and ready now? Welcome to the MJS Industrial and Technology Park, located in Spanish Town, Jamaica, a 450,000 square foot facility geared towards innovation, technology, and opportunity. MJS is a special economic zone that offers tax and duty relief to foreign and local investors like no other place in the Caribbean does. This is the place to invest in. 30% of Kingston's workforce lives near MJS. That's thousands of employees gaining back hours that they never had. It makes a game changer for people's standard of living. This is a park designed not just for business, but for people. MJS is centrally located. We're only a mile away from the North-South Highway, 18 miles from Kingston, and about a 12-minute drive from Portmore. We cut down the commute times tremendously, making it so much easier for the workforce to get where they need to be and spend more time with their families. Whether you're in logistics, manufacturing, tech, or business process outsourcing, MJS can meet your needs. We have spaces available in cold shell, finished, and custom designed to make sure that we give you exactly what you want. MJS brings credibility, experience, and excellence to every square foot.
And the man you saw in that video is none other than Chairman of MJS Industrial and Tech Park, Michael Subratie. Welcome to the show, Michael.
Thank you, Kalila. Thank you for having me.
And you're not just the chairman, but the visionary behind this development. We heard all about it at the official opening ceremony today. But first, let's hear about you and your journey as a business leader, as an entrepreneur here in Jamaica. Give us some of your background because it's your first time on Taking Stock.
Sure, it's a pleasure to be on your show. So I started off as a structural engineer and worked with the Ministry of Local Government and Works. And then after that, I transitioned into private business and became part of a very big group of companies called the Musson Group of Companies, of which I'm a director. And I oversee their manufacturing and many of their logistic businesses. And we're not just in Jamaica, but we're also in other islands throughout the Caribbean. And I came across this opportunity through my father, and he told me that this was a place back in the 1950s where my grandfather used to work, and this was in Spanish Town. And when he took me there, it was the old Aragonaba textile mill. And from the first sight, when I waded through the bushes and the ruins of it, I got to see the building structure and see that it had the structural integrity to really take that building and rehabilitate it. And that's exactly what we did. We took a 220,000 square foot building that was left sitting for decades in ruins, and we added an additional 100,000 square feet on top to make a total of 320,000 square feet in Angel, Spanish Town. And the vision was very simple. Everybody lives in the area, in Spanish Town, Portmore, Old Harbor, Linstead, and it's such a great central point. When you look at the North-South Highway, you look at the railway, the proximity was perfect. But there was nothing happening in the area. The area was just, there's no commerce really going on in there. But yet so many people live around the area. It's a high density area. And it's happened to be right next to the GC Foster College. So there was so many parts to the puzzle of trying to put it together in such a way that we could create value. And that's what we did. We were able to take ownership of the property, and we created a plan. We designed a plan around it, and using the history, and we got investors to come in and see the vision that we had of making it a technology and industrial park where people could come and be in a sustainable work environment. And we did that. We saw this vision about three years ago, and it has really developed extremely well. Everything just came together really well because people saw the opportunity.
You saw the vision pretty much immediately when you saw the ruins of the old property, but not everybody was sold immediately. It took some convincing, particularly because Spanish Town has a not so great reputation. There are people who have fears about crime, for example. So how did you get your other partners on board and bring this project to fruition?
The idea behind that is that, distressed communities are usually communities that don't have opportunities. And if you can create those opportunities, then immediately you'll see a change in the environment. And the perception of the environment will change very quickly. And I think I was very blessed to come across people that realize that. At Musson, for example, the chairman, PV, he saw that opportunity after a little bit of convincing. And the first mover, our first tenant, Transparent BPO, Scott Newman, also saw that vision. And we had a lot of naysayers, and we purposely never decided to talk about, you mentioned earlier in the beginning of your opening, that we are having our opening 1 year after. And that's because we wanted to be 100% tenanted. We didn't want to talk about what we were going to do. We wanted to talk about what we've done, because people have a perception that it's an area that is, is exposed to a lot of crime and extortion, and I'm sure it exists everywhere. But that's what happens when you're in a distressed community. So if you can take a distressed community and create something there, you'll immediately see results. And I'll tell you this, from the time we've started, we've had no problems whatsoever in the development during construction and up to now where we are at a fully operational stage. We have 2,800 people working in the facility as we speak right now. And that's going to expand because the tenants that are already there are building out their existing spaces. And that's going to go up to approximately 5,000 employees. So we've created value for the community, and the perception of being a dangerous place quickly disappears when you create the value and the opportunity for people. Because trust me, when you look at the people living in Kingston, or the people working in Kingston, sorry, most of them are living in Portmore, Spanish Town, a lot live in Old Harbour, a lot live in Linstead, and they're commuting in. So why not go to where they are and make life more convenient for them? So it's a series of factors that has led to the success.
You mentioned your workforce. You already have 2,800 people. And what's interesting, and about to grow to 5,000, you already have those commitments. But what's interesting is that people hear BPO and they think, oh, call center fits with the idea of a technology park. But when you say technology park, it's not just traditional call center work. You guys, or your tenants, are doing some really high value work. So talk to us about some of the work that actually is taking place at this complex.
So there is a false perception at the moment about call centers. People are thinking, oh, call centers are not a productive industry for the country to advance in. And that may have been so at the beginning, but nowadays that's changed very rapidly. And we need to really address that perception that we have. For example, the call centers that we have, I'll give you an example. Sagility is one of our tenants, and they focus on healthcare. Very sophisticated types of issues that come up when people have to deal with their health insurance policy in the US, and they need to call somebody to get information on what their policy will cover. And that's not your typical call center. That people think of, where people are calling and doing very simple tasks. These are tasks that are much more involved and require a lot more training and skill sets. And that allows people to earn more because you're required to know more and have more, more training. And the park is focusing a lot on training everybody that works there with the different tenants, so that they do more sophisticated business process outsourcing.
Yeah.
And so that's a huge point, that we can't put the BPO industry aside. We have to appreciate the fact that it has changed. Just like they're using, for example, another example is they're using AI in their work. So the AI is actually playing a role with the person who's doing the processing. So it's a lot more sophisticated nowadays than it was maybe a couple of years ago.
Yeah, from what I saw today, they're doing like high level work, even in healthcare, examining x-rays, giving medical advice. I saw that one of your other clients has Nintendo as one of their clients with a brand new Nintendo Switch. So gamers in Jamaica are being employed working for Nintendo via, this facility. I think that's so cool.
So our first mover, so there's Sagility, another one is called Transparent BPO. They just won the Nintendo contract, and it's a huge win for them. And they basically, PlayStation, the new version of PlayStation comes out, I think next year. Nintendo's coming out with their new one that's just launched, and Jamaica is going to be through Transparent BPO that is going to be dealing with all those technical issues that are happening with using the Nintendo equipment. And that's not a simple job. That requires a lot of training. The Nintendo people have come down shown everybody how to use the equipment and troubleshoot and do all the different things like that. So it's a lot more sophisticated, and you can tell when you walk through the facilities and you see the focus and and also the passion that everybody has that's working in the centers. There's a lot of productive activity that's going on there, and they're getting, well, you know, relatively speaking, they're earning.
Yeah, we have a question from one of our viewers, so let me take that question right now. Christopher wants to know, will MJS also invest in building a few high-quality schools nearby? The workforce will need a place to send their children instead of Kingston.
So on that note, I don't think we're going to build schools. What we are doing is our neighbor is GC Foster College. It's the only tertiary institution in Spanish Town, and it's a sports college. And they have a huge amount of classrooms that are first class. And our tenants have committed to rehabilitating those classrooms and raising the bar, because just like the textile mill was, you know, that was dilapidated. The school is not dilapidated, but the school needs a lot of work. And I'm envisioning that with us helping the school, we will be able to help on a tertiary level, because that school has a lot more capacity to do other things rather than just the sports college that it's focused on. So we are in talks with them, and it's very encouraging. They're really open to us trying to help them with the different aspects of their college. So I think we're going to contribute on the tertiary level, because we are right next door to GC Foster College.
Yeah, makes sense. Now, on that note, ESG is a big part of what you are doing. It's environmental, social, and governance. Why was that so important to you, and what are some of the ESG measures that you're putting in place?
Okay, so that was a huge draw from the foreign direct investors, the 5 major investors, 5 different tenants who invested in us. They saw the vision, and they also saw that we were a sustainable ESG company. It's kind of a word I flip between ESG and sustainable, because we are focusing on solar energy. We're going to be putting in a huge solar farm, and we're blessed in that we have a lot of land space. So we're about to embark on a huge solar farm. We already have a licensed well on the site, so we're providing our own water to all of the tenants on the campus. And in addition to that, we have a community where we are going to be having so we're 65 acres, and the college next door to us is approximately 60 acres. So there's going to be, once our manufacturing tenant, which is Honeybun, has finished their building out, we are going to integrate the entire campus between the school facilities and the technology and industrial park. So we are taking advantage of having a very sustainable development and operation. For example, the building that we have 320,000 square feet, the majority of it was built in the 1950s. We didn't tear down the building and build a brand new building. All of the bricks that you see there are from the 1950s. So we made use of what we had, and that's a very sustainable ESG position that we are carrying right through, and we're implementing already the policies of that, and that has attracted the foreign investors. That has brought them in because their companies are focused on being ESG compliant. So when they are contracting our tenants to do services for them, it is a complete win-win, because when they bring their clients, like one of their clients is Airbnb. So they bring Airbnb to Jamaica, and they see that the contracted operator in Touch, which is another tenant that we have, is ESG compliant. That's just a win-win. So that was a major draw for everyone investing in our project in Spanish Town.
What's the long-term plan for this project?
Our long-term plan is that we have, so we what we've done to date is we've developed 15 acres of the property, and that's a major accomplishment. We're going to be at 5,000 jobs in 9 months. We're at 2,800 now, and we have an additional set of lands, approximately 50 acres of land, where what we're going to do is we're going to embark on a phase two. We've been in discussions because, at the end of the day, when you do something really well, it creates a domino effect. And we've gotten a serious interest from a manufacturer overseas that we've had advanced talks with, and we're hoping to build an additional 100,000 square feet as a new build on the land that we have. And that's going to incorporate usage of the train because they need to bring in raw material from Port Esquivel, and then they're going to bring finished product out. So that's a huge development, but I'm so excited about it, but I have to hold off until the times are right.
Right. Raquel wants to know, would you look to expand outside of Spanish Town to other areas?
Raquel, that's a great question. We are embarking on a major development in St. Thomas, in Morant Bay. So I would love to save that news for another opportunity with you when the time comes. But that's where we're going next. And it's going to be an incredible project, a different project, but an incredible one. So that's where we're going to steer our focus. We're not losing sight of Spanish Town. That's our baby right there, and we're going to nurture it really well. But St. Thomas is a brand new territory that the government has put in the infrastructure, and they've also built a huge commercial center out there, which is extremely impressive, and we are going to capitalize on it.
Wow. Yeah. See, I like your idea of expanding to quote unquote distressed areas. St. Thomas is distressed in a different way than Spanish Town is distressed. But yeah, lots of opportunity there, especially with the new highway in that direction. What kind of timeline are you looking at for St. Thomas?
We're expecting to make an announcement within the next 4 to 6 weeks. But we'll have a groundbreaking. But I would say that it'll be a project that will probably materialize into an operational state with, because building takes time, within the next 12 to 16 months.
Wow.
From the groundbreaking.
Wow. Well, we're definitely excited to hear a lot more about that project and to see, the development there at Angels grow. Thank you so much for joining us, Michael. I wish you much success on all your endeavors.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate your show and what you do. So thanks for having me.
That's Michael Subratie, chairman and visionary behind MJS Industrial and Technology Park. The official groundbreaking ceremony was today. And let me mention, Prime Minister Andrew Holness was the keynote speaker at that event. As you know, the PM is a native of Spanish Town, so he delivered the keynote address, and his supporters were there because you know what season we are in, right? It's election season. General elections are constitutionally due, I believe, by September, so any day now, elections can be called, and we are all looking out for, when he does call it. And so our poll question for this evening has to do with election season. It's time for our poll question. Who do you think would manage Jamaica's economy better? Let's see where our Taking Stock viewers are falling. So your options are A, the JLP, B, the PMP, C, none of them, or D, other. Leave a comment. What do you think? Who do you think will manage Jamaica's economy better? Is managing / will manage Jamaica's economy better? A, JLP, B, PNP, C, none of them. Maybe we need a third party. Or D, whatever you think. Leave a comment. Just let us know your thoughts. So you can take that poll on the community tab of our YouTube channel, over on X, in our email tomorrow morning. Are you guys getting the emails now? I think we may have come upon a solution. Let me know. Are you getting the emails now? Are they out of your spam? Have you noticed a difference in the past couple of days with the emails? Hopefully, we've resolved the situation, or it is in the process of being resolved. But yeah, take the poll. It's going to be in your email tomorrow morning, and you can also take it on Twitter or on YouTube, or leave your answers in the chat, of course. Before we move on to the market recap, I did mention in the teaser that Mayberry has launched a new civil servant investment campaign. And I think this is a really great initiative to bring civil servants on board. So here to tell us more is General Manager at Mayberry, Damian Wiley. Hello, Damian.
Hi, Khalila. How are you doing?
I am great. Welcome to Taking Stock. So tell us what the civil servant investment campaign is all about.
So the civil servant campaign is really an initiative by Mayberry Investments tailored exclusively for Jamaica's public sector workers. And that group of people are extremely important to us for a number of reasons. People always ask, since we've started this initiative, who are the people that we're speaking to specifically? So we're talking about teachers, doctors, other civil servants, police officers, soldiers, government agency staff, and so on. The campaign is designed to make wealth building more accessible and rewarding for our civil servants, who we view as being an essential part of the people who serve our nation. One of the things, sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. The other thing is what?
So the other thing is that why this is an extremely important initiative for Mayberry is that we believe that civil servants are the backbone of our country, right? And we view this as a way of giving back. Secondly, our founder, Maurice Berry, was a civil servant himself. So it's a campaign aimed at reviving our roots and giving back to that group of people who are essential to our nation's growth.
So how is this different than other investment products that Mayberry offers?
Right. So there's a couple of differences. One, the first is that we're waiving our $1 million minimum account requirement and lowering that to 300,000. The other thing about it is that it comes along with a 12-month mandatory savings plan, giving people a chance to invest meaningfully and watch their investments grow. At a time when we see where interest rates on your savings accounts are very small, our return of 5%, we feel is an extremely attractive opportunity for people who need three things primarily. They need a safe investment, they need a secure investment, and they need something that's really simple and structured. And it's part of our managed portfolios here at Mayberry. So what the managed portfolios speak to is the reliance on seasoned investment professionals to make decisions on your part, because one, you don't have the time to follow the markets. You don't necessarily going to check the daily trade sheets. You're not necessarily going to realize what a war in Iran and the US or Israel means for your investment portfolio. So you have people that are dedicated to managing that for you. And again, it's one of those things that we believe very strongly about. So those are the differences that we can come up with.
You mentioned a 5% return. Is that a guaranteed return?
Guaranteed 5%, yes.
So 5% is on the
per annum.
On the conservative side, somewhat. What types of things would you be investing in on behalf of civil servants?
So you're asking me to give away the secret sauce. But what I'll say is we will be investing in assets that yield a guaranteed 5% return. Some of those assets could be simple certificates of deposits, other assets such as local notes that have been issued by strong local companies, or it could be a mixture of both. As I said, you're asking me to give away the secret sauce, and I can't necessarily do that.
Oh, well, you've told us enough, so we have an idea. Hurt wants to know, do you have to prove that you're a civil servant to open the account?
Yes, you do have to prove that. Typically, you would use a your work ID would be a good source of proof, or a job letter if you don't have your work ID, for example.
All right. So how can somebody sign up and learn more about the campaign?
So of course, you know that we're living in a digital age, right? So if you visit www.mayberryinv.com, there is a ton of information there. We're located at 1.5 Oxford Road. So if you want to talk to somebody, feel free to stop by. Any of our seasoned investment advisors are always willing to have a conversation with you.
Why civil servants in particular, though? Why did you want to target this group of workers?
Because we believe that this group of workers are often overlooked by, the various products that financial services businesses offer. We believe that, as again I said before, it's a part of who we started out being. There's a beautiful picture of what Mayberry represents downstairs in our lobby, just as you enter, and you'll see in that picture exactly who I'm talking about. You'll see teachers, nurses, doctors, police officers, the JDF. So it's something that's very, very meaningful to us, and especially given that this year is our 40th year, I think that it was a good mix in terms of time and initiative that we kind of remember where we're coming from and give back something to that group of people from whence we came.
Johnson wants to know if the 5% is tax-free.
So the 5% isn't tax-free, but we can always work with you on another side of the business to identify what those tax opportunities are. In fact, there's one coming up, but I'll allow the marketing team to do their job probably in another week or two that actually has a tax deferment attached to it.
And Hurt Quick is back, wanting to know if you can sign up online.
Yes, you can sign up online. You can open your account online at www.mayberryinv.com. It takes probably about 20 minutes if you have all the data that are required, your typical data, your proof of ID, proof of address, proof of income, that sort of thing, and all of that is uploaded digitally.
Is there a deadline to enroll?
I would say do it as soon as possible because, like I said, as you know, Mayberry is always creating new opportunities. So there may be a new opportunity on the horizon. And one thing we know for sure is that when we're in the market and the market responds to us, it usually is an overwhelming response. So I would say start, get it done, and jump in, get your investments going, get your savings plan going, and start reaping your rewards.
Well, thank you so much, Damien. We appreciate it. And like you heard, go to mayberryinv.com, you said?
.com
to sign up now. Civil servants, take advantage of this special offer. Thank you once again, Damien.
All right. Have a good night.
Up next, we've got your market recap, and the analysts are standing by. Market Recap is brought to you by MyMoneyJA, the official data partner of Money Media. Get 10% off your subscription with the code MONEYMISSION. The JSE Combined Index lost 2,600 points last week. That's down about 1%. 121 stocks traded across the main and junior markets for the week ending Friday, June 20, 2025. 51 made gains, 57 lost value, and 13 stayed the same. 58 million shares changed hands on the Jamaican dollar market, valued at $314 million. TransJam was the week's most traded stock, with 13 million shares changing hands. It started the week at $3.63. Wigton traded the second most shares. It opened Monday at $1.23, and Dollar rounded out last week's most traded stocks. Now let's see who had the biggest gains. First Rock USD was the JSE's top stock, up 31% to open the week at 2 cents US. Epley 7.5% preference shares had the second biggest gain, up 19%, and Jetcon rounded out the top stocks, up 17%. On the losing side now, medical disposables and supplies was the week's biggest loser. The stock lost 19.5% to start the new week at $1.28. AS Bryden USD dipped 18% to close out the week at 16 cents US, and MFS Capital Partners fell 16%. Over on the Trinidad and Tobago Stock Exchange, the composite index was mostly flat last week. Trinidad and Tobago NGL was the TTSE's most traded stock. It opened Monday at $3.75 TT. Prestige Holdings was the TTSE's top gainer, up 13%. And on the losing side, Ansa Macal fell 4% to open Monday at $40.91 TT. Over in the U.S., the Dow Jones fell about 1% last week, while the S&P 500 dipped 0.5%, and the Nasdaq was mostly flat. It was a rough week for motorists at the pumps last week. The cost of 87 gas rose $3.06, while 90 was up $3.84. Meanwhile, diesel prices climbed $4.50. In foreign exchange trading, it took an average $160.93 Jamaican to purchase $1 last Friday. That's $1.06 more than the week before. One Canadian dollar cost on average $117.96 Jamaican. One British pound cost $216.32 Jamaican. And you could buy €1 for $185.15 Jamaican on average. Finally, on the crypto markets, Bitcoin prices fell 3% over the past 5 days, trading at $101,267 on Monday. Meanwhile, Ethereum fell 11%, trading at $2,235 on Monday. Market Recap was brought to you by MyMoneyJA, the official data partner of Money Media. So, you've been supporting Taking Stock on my content all over social media for the past 5 years, and I can't thank you enough. Money Media has grown from just me in my living room with a cell phone to a full production team. And guess what? It takes time and money to bring you the quality show that you expect week after week. And we need your help to keep it going another 5 or even 50 years. Support us by subscribing to our Patreon at patreon.com/moneymediaja. The link is in the description. This section of Taking Stock, The Analysts, was brought to you by Sagicor Investments.
Disclaimer. This is not intended as financial advice. Please consult a licensed financial advisor before making investment decisions.
Welcome back. So let me take a few comments before we introduce our analyst panel for the evening. Shout out to Mario joining us from Memphis, Tennessee. John is joining us from Mobay. Roswell says, I like the thought, seeing opportunity. It was just the same outlook while we have Montego Bay BPO. Big stores in Fairview, bank, food and more. It was a cane field and bushes 33 years ago. You see the vision. Chairman says Michael exudes great passion for this project. He absolutely does. It really does come across. Christopher says MJS sounds like an excellent business. And somebody pointed out 100% tenanted. It's a big deal. Roswell says she saw the news on local TV. And now we have some responses to the poll question about who do you think would be the better steward for Jamaica's economy. Your options were A, the JLP, B, the PNP, C, other, or D. Just leave a comment and let us know what you think. So we have Camisia saying C, which is none of them. The Diplomat says A, which was JLP. Christopher says A, also JLP. Mario says B, PNP. Liferoot says A, JLP. Sean says C, not a single one. Diplomat says PNP only has concepts of a plan. Shane says C, neither of them. Day and Night Construction says A, that's JLP. And then on the Mayberry interview now we have Eileen saying Mayberry is selecting a great market for that product and the low entry will make it easy for professionals to join. All right, let's introduce our analyst panel for this evening. Joining us is Taking Stock analyst David Rose, and we also have with us Assistant Vice President at Sagicor Investments, Jodianne Aris. Welcome back, David and Jodianne.
Night, Kalila.
Good night. Hi, everyone.
Great to have you. So, David, we are starting with you. And you're talking about Dolphin Cove because their parent company has been having some issues for a while now. What's the latest with that?
So, there are some court filings provided last week whereby the chief administrative officer, which is appointed by the creditors, Stephen Strom, and the chief restructuring officer, I believe name is Robert Wagstaff, they have engaged two particular firms. They approached Greenhill and Company to be their investment banker and Keen Summit Capital Partners LLC to be their real estate advisor and broker. So they plan to actually, their intention is to actually market some of the company's foreign properties and their subsidiaries to a group of investors to raise cash up to the parent company and the subsidiaries. So this was filed in Delaware because it's currently at Chapter 11 bankruptcy, which is a debt restructuring in effect. And under the initial schedule that they provided for real estate that the company or the group actually owns, they've listed the Dolphin Cove properties here in Jamaica. So Puerto Seco, Ocho Rios, Montego Bay, and Yaman Adventure Park. Yaman Adventure Park is, the ATVs and all those other doom buggies and everything else. So this, can be a good or bad thing depending on how it's structured, because what I potentially suspect that is going to happen is that you're probably going to see the sale of the real estate and a leaseback arrangement. So sell the real estate to a third party and you just lease it back from them on a monthly lease arrangement. And the team, of the administrators and administrators basically say, hey, declare a dividend to shareholders, which should benefit the manager shareholders as well, send the money back up to the parent company to the higher subsidiaries to address the capital needs at the higher level. So Dolphin Cove has had a pretty tumultuous year, to be fair, because when the news first came out about, one of the intermediate parent companies entering the Concurso Mercantil in Mexico, that sent a price of from like $19 to $11 in less than 2 weeks. The news that Stafford Burroughs, the chairman at the time, said, hey, he was, willing to buy the company back. It went up for sale. So the company's price went back to $19, erased its losses, and it started to trend back down as people took profits. And then we saw some allegations made by the former CEO of the parent company about, borrower status on the board and against the board members. So that's in the price went down again. The company announced a dividend of 60 cents. The price went back up. News come out again. The price come back down. So for some persons, they made some good money. For others, they hold some pretty heavy unrealized losses.
Sean wants to know, how do they have the authority to sell these properties, especially the ones from Dolphin Cove?
So back in April 2019, Controladora, that's the intermediate company, it and a couple of the other entities took out a $100 million US note from investors in international markets, right? There was a debt facility. After the debt facility, they pledged different assets, and when the asset was pledged, was all of the Dolphin Cove shares owned by its parent company. So 79.99% shares are actually currently pledged as collateral to the debt facility, and the administrative team were restructuring the business and trying to, restore some harmony across the group. They have the authority, which is married to shareholders, to go through this process to sell the real estate and, likely pay a dividend out to shareholders to send that money back up to the parent. And the thing is, it's not a bad idea because dolphin was just assets, it's biological assets, the dolphins, the parrots, and other animals, but the real estate, it's not what one would call germane, or what we would describe as the thing that would basically kill the company if it's not there, because once you have an ironclad lease arrangement and that potential new buyer is comfortable buying those properties and haven't paid a monthly lease, you're probably likely going to be very comfortable because Dolphin Cove Limited, the listed entity in the JSE, operationally they are fine. So they're relatively isolated from all the developments taking place at the parent company level. But the problem is that because the parent company is, administrator trying to restructure the debt and try to also get capital up there to do a liquidity crunch, they're trying to find cash in other means. And in this case, they're finding to advertise some of the properties, the farm properties to a group of investors. Even before, I came at Taking Stock a while ago, someone shared the same article I wrote on Observer on Friday about a real estate sale because persons are interested in the potential purchase of their property under sale and leaseback arrangement.
So how is all of this going to impact shareholders, David, especially the Jamaican shareholders?
So I gave a scenario because it would not be in the best interest of the creditors, administrators to try and circumvent minority shareholders in the proposed plan to sell the real estate. Either to sell the real estate, pay a dividend, a massive dividend to shareholders, and send the money back up to the parent company. You would likely see an increase in the monthly administrative expenses because there'd be a lease cost associated with operating the business now. But at the end of the day, for some investors, depending on the size of the dividend payout, might be worthwhile because you bought that with $11 and if it's a $2 dividend, that's call it about 17%. And that's just me being putting numbers off the top of my head. Like I'm not done what one would call a best guess, or best estimate calculation of what the potential return could be for the said Dolphin Cove's real estate. But all in all, it is a potential opportunity if that transaction plays out as it needs to play out and a dividend is paid out. But in the interim, all of this noise has caused the price to go down by 35% year to date, which is pretty rough. $19 at the start of the year, $12 right now. So pretty significant decline in the price. And
How much is it trading at right now, you said?
$12.07. That's
Oh,
the year at around
19.
Yeah. So you see the decline that has occurred. So right now, the biggest risk is just the continued battle between the former CEO, Eduardo Albord, and the administrators. Every time you go to Delaware courts and look at the court documents, you're seeing new allegations, because these are not proven by the court as yet, that something has taken place with Albord, something has taken place here, there. It's about between Mexican and US courts. So it's very noisy and very annoying in a sense because you cannot really put a timeline on all these developments that are going to be taking place right now because they mentioned this proposal. They have not put Dolphin Cove properties up as properties that should be marketed immediately because they're still waiting on the courts to approve Green Hill and Keen Summit as their investment bankers and real estate brokers. But the reality is it's going to be a tough period for me now here at Dolphin Cove from the perspective of just confidence, just with all that's going on. The AJ is next week, Thursday, July 3 at the Courtly Hotels at 2 p.m. So that's going to be in person, unfortunately, but for persons who can attend and keep their colleagues informed, you can go to the meeting and actually ask questions as to what's going on. Because one thing that happened recently was that a JC disclosure came out that Stafford Borough's office as a director was vacated. He's no longer director of Dolphin Cove, but we've not heard announcement of a new chairman as yet. Neither have we heard any clarity from the board or team as to the validity of that move, to remove him as a director. So it's just a lot of uncertainty and just, I shouldn't say, a little confusion as well.
Oh boy. Oh, Dolphin Cove, one of the stocks that we continue to keep our eye on. And speaking of those stocks that we are watching, Jodian, summer is officially in swing, which means the party season is starting. And also, I feel like Dolphin Cove is one of the places that you take the kids over the summer holiday and you have that break. You go Ochi, you take them to Dolphin Cove.
They are in school trips.
School trips, right? What stocks are you looking at for the summer?
Well, I think in the scheme of things, there are companies in a similar segment, entertainment segment, that sometimes see a little bit of a bump up during the summer months. I think one of the other things to note sometimes with the companies in these sort of segments is that we probably need to take a little different approach in terms of how it is that we look at them. So there's typically the approach to look at companies that have steady growth in revenue and profits when we're looking at things to buy. But there are some companies that, have an cyclical performance, and so those revenue movements sometimes have some amount of correlation with economic performance, and those can be also good options. I think earlier when we were listening to your first guest, he pointed out that distressed communities don't really, for the most persons, don't provide much opportunities. But you can also look at companies that may seem to be in a struggling phase as companies that could be something that you could purchase at a low end price now that could have some amount of growth in the future. And one of the things that we notice about companies like these that have that sort of a cyclical nature is that they learn to manage direct costs well, and that helps them in terms of how it is that they're able to keep steady margins. In fact, for some companies, you may even see an uptick in margins during those tougher times, and that speaks, positively to how management and leadership is doing. I think the last time we'd have looked at ECL, we should have been one of those companies that were able to maintain margins. And so we want to take a look at MJE, Main Event Entertainment Group tonight, as well as we'll touch a little bit on the lab. And so for Main Event, they would have recently released their second quarter earnings results for the quarter ended April 30th, 2025. And the company would have generated revenue of about 306 million, and this would have actually been a decline year over year. And what they cited as a major factor was that there is a recovering economic environment. So we know that we'd have had hurricanes last year, and so the first quarter of this year, January to March, would have really represented the expectation that we'd have seen some amount of recovery coming out at that period. And also during these times when you have persons having less disposable income, the demand for entertainment can be a little bit reduced. But if you think about the fact that we're picking up in economic activities and we're going into a summer period, then there could be some amount of increased demand for such companies, the services of such companies. And, when we look back even at how it is that Main Event would have performed last year, the overall performance for 2024 was actually really lower than expected due to there was a dip in some of the traditional sources. And they would have pointed out that there were companies that would have actually reduced the marketing spend just based on the nature of the environment. And there was a bit of a higher cost. So if it is that we are forward looking and we're thinking that there could likely be improvements in economic activities, then you could see for companies such as these that have the cyclical link with economic performance that there could be some upside to come for them. And, one of the things you also know that companies tend to do is that during these tough times where they do have, a good backing in terms of capital or cash base, they tend to invest in capital so that they can make some amount of strategic shifts to go forward. So this helps them to prepare for when it is that the market dynamics start to shift in their favor. And we'd have noted that a company similar like Main Event would have started to have done some of those capital spend in the quarters prior. So they would have been doing that, and it would have reflected in higher costs, and that would have also had a hang in terms of the income statement. But remember that when you're kind of looking at a forward-thinking process, these are things that could be positive in the long term or in the long run. And similarly for Lab is another example of a company that is feeling the economic.
Before we move on to the lab, so Main Event, we need to point out, it's not just parties that they do. So they do conferences. Do you know if they have any involvement with the political arena? Because we're heading into that season now. There's going to be conference and this and that and all kinds of things requiring that type of service.
Right. So there is positive to come, and I think as economic activity pick up, then you'll start to see that persons who probably would have reduced in terms of the marketing budgets will start to do so. There are normally summer promotions that come about, and so a company like Lab that does some amount of content production is also one that could benefit in those areas when you think of just the time period that we're going into, as well as the expectation of the expectation that we could be seeing higher economic activity. And Lab would have also, during the tougher periods of time, invested in some capital investing in order to prepare for this change. Also, when you look at the balance sheet for Main Event, it really has low borrowing, so there's not much in terms of debt repayment that it has, and there's good cash balance. And I think what is really good for companies that are in the entertainment space that you may not expect when you look at other junior market companies is that they actually have been making consistent dividend payments even in last year when they had tough times. And so that points to, how it is that we can probably frame our mindset in terms of sometimes how we're thinking about buying stocks and not just looking at companies, we look at the bottom line and it's growing, but to consider that it's an opportunity to look at companies even though they may not be having a net profit that is consistently growing, but there is likelihood that there could be benefiting in the future from growth in weather economic activities.
Interesting. Now, we also have hurricane season, which is now upon us. It's June now. How is that likely to affect some of these companies that we're looking at?
That's a big risk because it would have been a factor that affected them for last year, because last year would have had burial and we'd have seen where the disposable income reduced. Persons who would have been planning some events, marketing expenditures would have been, let's take a cut here going forward. So it is a big risk because when there is some sort of devastation, there are events that get postponed, there are events that get canceled, and so there would have been some amount of spend for some persons. And you find that with our main events is that they're also branching off to doing their own events. So it's not just providing services for other persons' events, they're also building up their own book in terms of providing events. And so if it is that you look at it from that perspective, hurricanes do present a big risk for companies because it impacts your disposable income. If it is that there is a hurricane and there's reduced economic activity, then that's a factor because their performance is heavily linked to how it is that the companies perform, how the economy performs.
Philip is making a note that Main Event does work heavily with the government. He says, including renting AV equipment to the Supreme Courts. So, yeah. Well, government and political parties, two different things. I was talking about election season, we're heading into that and a lot going on there. Yeah, David?
Apologies. So just to, give a quick point about the political side. So Main Event does, event management. When it came on to even the AGM for Supreme Interest today, I believe Main Event was there present in terms of the setup and design of the stage and location. So in terms of, when the election is announced, which will be in a couple weeks or even months, you're likely going to just see, certain campaign or rallies being held at particular locations, and you might just see a person from Main Event, set up the location or coordinating parts of the event. So that's the kind of angle in terms of, where you might see the political impact. But don't forget that when it comes on to the political season, especially for Jamaica's election, you're going to see a lot more spending by the political parties, which does have a trickle-down effect in different areas of the economy. So you're going to see more media engagement, TVJ, Observer, papers, social media. You're going to see more political rallies and different events where you're going to need to be fed. People need to have drinks and just, coordinate transportation. So this accumulation season is a good little period of stimulation that can come to different parts of the economy. As I've been feeling it in terms of relative slowness. On the North Coast, the air traffic is down probably 5 to 10% this year so far. Based on the air traffic data, we're seeing in the Mayberry's numbers, they said that marketing spend has been cut. When you look on labs numbers for the agency side, there's still a cut there as well. So you are seeing some level of contraction in the economy in different areas. So this expected election does, serve as a catalyst for some companies to spend more and, prepare for this development.
Yeah, absolutely. Lots of economic activity during election season. I have a comment here from Sherwin Jodian. Sherwin says, what about 1GS? Don't they have a part to play in promoting these events online?
So based on what I recall from
this question was for Jodian.
I think 1GS is more so search engine. I'm not sure about the promotion side of it. I know in terms of from what
they're marketing. They do marketing.
Oh, they do. Well, I think if it is that you think about it, that you're going into a period that you could see a buzz and excitement in the summer, there are a lot of promotions that happen. A lot of companies do promotion, particularly snacks and foods, because children are out of school, you tend to see a little bit more of those type of promotions to get consumers engaged during this period. So if it is that they are actively in that space, then they could be getting some of that business as well.
You wanted to add, David?
Yeah, so when it comes onto the marketing part, just to give some context, so from a search engine optimization standpoint, for example, look back at the TJH, offer for sale a couple months ago. You probably saw it all over social media pages, Glean or whatever page you went on, you saw it pop up in your face. So from the angle of search engine optimization and just coordinating those ads for their clients, that is where you're going to see one GS have its footprint in the sand. But one additional thing where Jody mentioned, food and snacks in the summer. So NEPA released their board decision report recently, and a lot of listed companies in the JSE have news to talk about. So environmental permit for construction and operation of distillery, brewing and fermenting facilities at Lakes Penrose, St. Catherine by Wisinco Group Limited. That is new news, Kalila.
Wait,
Cinco's
say
going to be a
it
brewery.
again. I missed piece of it. What happened to Wisinco?
So let me repeat it again. Apologies. Environmental permit for construction and operation of distillery, brewery, and fermenting facilities at Lakes Penrose, St. Catherine by Wisinco Group Limited. And there's also another permit for the construction and operation of hydrocarbon production, refining, storage, and stockpiling by Wisinco Group Limited as well.
Hydrocarbon production. What's hydrocarbon stuff again?
Like natural gas, basically.
Oh.
Yeah, so remember Wisinco, the LNG facility that they use to cut down their JPS bill. So the brewery is the bigger part of the story, though, still.
Yeah, so beers and alcoholic beverages from Wisinco. Interesting.
And
that's a new space for them.
And Bay West Development Limited has applied again back to NEPA to construct a resort development in Montego Bay. Bay West is a subsidiary of Pan Jamaica Group. And PESCO has also applied for a permit to construct and operate a production facility for hydrocarbons in Port St. Catherine. So people all the time, you can find this information online, do your own research, and keep up to date with the market before the companies announce these developments. So NEPA publishes their board decision reports every month under the Natural Resources and Conservation Authority Act and the Town and Planning Country Act. They tell if a company has been approved or declined for a particular permit. And on the last page of this document, of the June report, it says, Tropical Battery was approved for their export of hazardous waste.
A lot of news coming out this week. David, thanks so much for the updates. Before we go, David, you do have a clarification that you want to make. So let me give you that opportunity.
Sure. So, Gordon Swaby, wanted me to point out that, Edifocal isn't, insolvent, based on Jamaican, the Jamaican law, not having debt restructuring, not having any inability to pay debts or declaring insolvent. He just wanted that to be clarified, basically.
Okay. All right. Thanks, David. And thanks again, Jodianne. Keeping our eye out for the summer. That's it for the analysts. We'll take our final break and come back with your comments. All right, while we queue that up, it seems that we may be having some technical difficulties. Let me take some of your comments. All right, we don't have the closing queued up. All right, so some more responses to the poll question. I have Rohan Henry saying A for sure. A was JLP. So the question, once again, the poll question was, who do you think is or will be the better steward of the economy? A, JLP, B, PNP, C, none of them, D, other, leave a comment. And so Rohan says, A for sure. I'm tempted to come back home as I can see where there is development with a view for growth. Dai Prasad says, it looks like I'm heading to the ballroom after the show. Actually, so I was at MJS Tech Park opening earlier. I was the host for the event, the MC, and this is what I had on. And I just thought it looked nice, and I said I'm gonna keep it on for the show. So that's why, all dolled up today. Roger says A again, JLP. Roswell is pointing out that's why it's risk when we invest in the direct market in these companies, no matter how well things are going now. That's why I take some medium outlook, not always long term. Things can get ugly. Shells says Dolphin Cove, Jamaica Broilers, Edufocal. I create so much drama with these companies. It's like daytime drama series over on the JSC. Let me see who else we have. I see some conversation going on about TJH. Every week, you guys talk about TJH. Somebody was asking if they are now charging on that final leg of the toll. Nope. Still enjoying the freeness. I don't mind. As a shareholder, though, different story. Let's see who else we have. Roswell says, what if TJH trade low at 290 and possibly lower? Would we raise eyebrow? Or are we taking up more? Chairman says, I would take up more once the books and the vision for the company is still good. R. Kenny wants to know if anyone's buying Tropical Battery. Notice that they have extended that deadline yet again. Who else we have? All right, I think that's more or less it. More or less it, yeah. So thank you so much for your comments this week. Thanks for joining us yet another week. We appreciate your presence as usual. Tell a friend to join us here on Taking Stock or watch the replay. Like the video. Who hasn't liked the video yet? Please go hit the like button. Share with a friend. Thank you to our hardworking production team for making the show possible. Thank you to all our guests this evening. Michael Subratie from MJS. Somebody was asking what MJS stands for. Depends on who you ask. So I heard 2 stories today about what MJS stands for. Apparently, it originally stood for Mussin Jamaica Subratie. But then the inside joke is that Michael Subratie's middle name is also J. So it's Michael J. Subratie Industrial and Tech Park. And he kind of tricked PB Scott into naming it after himself. So depending on who you ask, MJS has different meanings. MJS Industrial and Tech Park. Thank you also to Damian Wiley from Mayberry for telling us all about the Civil Servants Investment Program there at Mayberry. Thanks to our analysts, David Rose and Jody Ann Aris from Sagicor Investments. Of course, you can find their contact information in the description box below. And thanks to you for tuning in yet another week, reminding you that the Money Mission workbook is now available over on Amazon, and it will be available in Fontana, I think sometime this week. Soon as I know, I'm gonna let you guys know, but it's gonna be in select Fontana pharmacy locations. Should be sometime this week. For those of you who are abroad, you can order it online at Amazon.com. Just type in Money Mission workbook or type in Kalila Reynolds. It will pop right up. That's our show for this week. Thanks for joining us. I will see you again next week. And until then, guys, let's keep making investing sexy. Let's get this money.